Hello and welcome back to another episode. Today I want to tell you about this little guy, Soundwave, a G1 classic character from the Transformers universe. Possibly my favourite Transformer ever, certainly my favourite Decepticon ever, and a character that I just grew to adore when I first saw him at weekends on TV reruns, but also eventually on VHS in those first two seasons of Transformers. Being loyal, being efficient, being a bit buttoned down and sort of almost cold in that sense, but there were reasons that I found that quite appealing when I was a kid. But also the very dynamic character, giving orders, making energon cubes out of his chest, having little tape decks that transformed into other Transformers. So in that sense, he was a multiple threat in one. He was fascinating, and I loved him. And I always wanted a toy of him. Now, over the years, Soundwave has become more and more expensive if you want an original G1 toy. And recently, I did get my hands on Hot Rod once more, having lost, and then regained him once more, and also over the years I've picked up other Transformers that are giving me the experience that I want with them. So for example, Galvatron, just on the shelf just behind me somewhere, isn't the original Galvatron toy, because actually I don't really like that original toy. I think he's a bit awkward, a bit closer to something like a GoBot or something, especially around the head on that Galvatron, and the way that the slightly pale orange gun connects, and all these little niggling things. He feels a bit sort of weak in the joints. That just makes me really appreciate the one on the shelf behind me more. I really get the experience that I'm after from that Galvatron, a chunky, bright purple and orange, much more like the movie Galvatron that I was looking for as a kid. And this Soundwave is similar in that respect. I don't think he'll ever replace the G1 toy. I'm still very much after that. But this delivers on that experience of Soundwave that I've always been after. Now, a couple of things. First of all, he's really small. He's only wee. He's a tiny little thing, and he's from the War for Cybertron Kingdom Core Collection. I'll link below to a review actually of this figure, a glowing review in fact, that I found online. And crucially, he actually transforms into a cassette player as opposed to a vehicle. At the moment there are two Transformers, for example, Soundwaves in our local Smith's toy store, that transform into vehicles, either a Cybertronian form or, for example, there's been a van form recently. That's been the way that people have seemingly been marketing and wanting Soundwave. But I've always appreciated the tape deck. There was a boombox transforming sort of almost a command center version of Soundwave a few years ago that I was interested in. But by the time I thought, yeah, I'll get that, he'd already gone. But in order to really appreciate why I like this Soundwave, we need to take a closer look. So let's do that now. So here we are at my desk, and oh look, a copy of The Orc Who Saved Christmas. What's that doing there? Crikey, I do believe this is currently available on Amazon to purchase if you want a copy. Anyway, we have thankfully my lovely webcam here that actually has an autofocus, so it should lock on to Soundwave and give us a bit more detail as to why this figure is absolutely fantastic. I really appreciate the form factor. He looks like that G1 cassette player, that portable 80s or 90s technical solution. And some things have been changed on this figure in order to accommodate his small size. So, for example, on the original G1 figure, these two cylinders are actually stored inside the back of Soundwave as batteries in terms of form factor that transform into his gun and his shoulder speaker or microphone. But this, as a small, portable, and in that sense, well-designed little version of Soundwave, I think maintains a lot of those classic boxy cartoon elements in a very clever way. So we take off these two guys. There's a whole neatly on each side in slightly different places, in fact, on the legs, on the back of the cassette player for these elements. The arms fold out. They're simply hinged on little ball joints and hinge out quite nicely and neatly. Forearms house the hands, which fold out like so. And same on this side. Book. Which also has that sort of slightly classic Transformers feel, in so much as it's a little bit like Optimus Prime, the way his arms come out from behind his torso as the cabin of a large truck. And then, of course, Soundwave's head just in the top here. Pull it up and then turn it around, and voila, we have Soundwave in quite a neat form factor. His gun goes in his hand. I can just there we go, put that there, and then his little sound shoulder mounted thingamabob goes there, and there we go. I think it's a really neat little figure, and crucially, it's very poseable because also of the way that it has to transform. So even his feet can sort of have a little bit of motion in them, movement in them. They can twist ever so slightly. The thigh there has a bit of rotation, so you can have quite a dynamic sort of pose going on with the leg off to one side, for example. His shoulders and elbows are likewise, because they're on ball sockets, very poseable. It's a very pleasing action figure, doll, play, toy, display artifact. And finally, yes, the chest does open. If we pop open Soundwave's chest, inside there is in fact a small cassette tape just there. If I just so there we go, little cassette tape there. Now this cassette tape is coloured to look a little bit like Laserbeak, red, silver, black. On the back it is just black, like so. And there is a version of this Soundwave that appears to be a very similar scale, which has a tiny little transformable Laserbeak cassette tape, which I'm very tempted to get. I think, having experienced how cool this form factor is and how poseable and evocative it is, maybe having that final little element of the tape actually transforming, much like the original G1, larger cousin counterpart. Maybe that's the final step in making this type of Soundwave a wonderful Transformer experience. I'll just open that again. You can sort of see how. So we have his chest open like that. The tape, you just sort of rest it in there like so, and then you can close it up, and voila. Now I have done a little bit of light dry brushing on this Soundwave. I'm not sure if it really comes through on this webcam, but there's a little bit of purple light dry brushing on the edges, just to give him that G1 cartoon edge. But I love him. I think he's fantastic, and obviously there's the details in terms of how he comes apart and goes together again, and where these cylindrical elements go. And again, you can see remnants of the battery on the back of the gun there. If we can just get it to focus, show you the light, so you can see the nub of the positive node of a AA battery just there on the back of the gun. So there's this stuff that nods to that original G1 Transformer design, but it's also other things, like if I just quickly change him back again. So let's just pop that off and pop off the gun, put the hands back and twist his head, pop that back in, and then that goes there, that goes there. There's this little rectangle there, actually plugs into a little nubbin on his back, on the back of his there's another one just there, back of his hip actually, just to help keep the arms in place, which is quite nice. Same on this side, like so, and then put the foot up, and have a little tab here that goes into a receiving hole on his shin, I suppose you could say. Again, foot, hole, twist, tab, and click. Again, it all clicks together quite nicely. This gun goes in here, just there. This shoulder mounted bit again with little battery positive nub in there. Just get it to focus on the back of the gun there. Hello. There we go. That goes in this hole down here. So there we go, all back together. Ta-da! And the detail that I wanted to show you was, I mean, obviously you've got the record, stop, play, fast forward buttons down here molded quite nicely, but also look on the side of the cassette player, you've got the volume adjuster, this little knurled dial, I suppose, which if it was a real working thing, you could scroll up and down and change the volume of your music. That's a detail that really did not have to be there in this mold. And actually little things like the underside of the feet have little elements as well, just to give some visual interest. The back of Soundwave has these things that, again, really don't have to be there. It's a figure that is wonderfully made and clearly made for fans of Soundwave as a cassette player. Or as a robot that transforms into and disguises himself as a cassette player, and I really appreciate it. So there you have it, Soundwave, small but perfectly formed. I really appreciate this version of the character, and for now he does scratch that little itch. As I say, there is a version that has a similar scale and actually has a transforming cassette tape. I may well get my hands on that in the near future, or I may just save my pennies and get hold of the original G1 toy, or eventually perhaps I'll have all three, who knows. But as a little, I think, a little love letter to that character, this toy really, actually, as the review that I've linked to below says, really shines. You can feel that there was care put into the attention to detail, for example, on this figure, that I really appreciate. And I just had to share it with you today. Soundwave. Yeah, if you're interested in Soundwave, consider it. It's a lovely little figure. Thank you guys for watching. Until next time, do take care. Bye-bye.